So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your patience. We'll get started now. Thank you for joining us today in our Chromebooks Beyond the Device presentation. As I think I said earlier, my name's Glenn Collins, and I am an Executive Vice President with CDI Computers, responsible for the EduGear branded products, or what we like to call education-ready mobile devices. This is a project we started a number of years ago when mobile devices really started to become a dominant form factor in the classroom. And really, in my role, I spent a lot of time with educators, technologists, administrators, as well as vendor partners like Google, Microsoft, Intel, and a number of the larger manufacturers offshore. And really, my role is to help take your wish list, if you will, in terms of what you need for technology in the classroom, and share it with the likes of Google and Intel. Try to come up with the products that are suited for your environment. So today's presentation really is a combination of what I have learned, or a snapshot, if you will, of some of the many lessons I've learned from your peers in terms of challenges and considerations when integrating Chromebooks in the classroom. So as I said, I'd like to make it as interactive as possible. So if I go through this and you want questions on something I'm covering, by all means, let's talk about it. What I'm trying to do here is really change the conversation or deflect it a little bit from just about the device, because we often, the fact that we sell devices often leads us to having conversations with folks like yourselves that are primarily focused on the device itself. So as much as I'd like to sell you guys products and I want to talk about some of the devices, I want to really focus on the other things that you need to consider and things that you should be looking at in terms of effective deployments. And again, as I said, this is really a reflection back from what I hear from your peers in the marketplace. So I'm going to close the poll. If you had an opportunity to answer, great. It looks like we had about 95% of you had a chance to do that. So I'm going to end that in about 10 seconds, and then I'll get that off your screen and we can move on to the content of the program. And as I said, our goal is to really focus on what's going on in education, what's driving the move to Chromebooks, what are all the considerations that you need to do outside of the device. So our I continue to look at the change in education and what's happening in the classroom and how that's affecting all the technologists and administrations and acquisition folks who are looking at buying technology. So it's really changing the way we're educating our students, finally having an impact on the ability to engage students in a different way. So there's a bunch of stats that I always look at to say, why is this happening? And it's a chicken and egg. The technology has to be there, but you still have to have the content, the ability to utilize that technology in order to change the way we teach, which then drives the acquisition of more technology, etc. So the statistics, like that 50% of all class time will be online by 2019. I actually think it'll be sooner and it'll be larger. We're seeing the utilization of technology where people can acquire it, afford to acquire it, where they have the infrastructure, that those are numbers that are happening in some schools today. So the other things that are happening is that we are, in essence, competing for students. So we need to be able to provide the students the ability to learn anywhere, anytime, in a format that really suits their requirements. And the technology is allowing us to do that. So sorry, I got somebody sent me a question, but it looks like it's fixed. So so the other things that it's impacting is the way the teachers teach. So they're going from being the main person on stage dictating the content and the concepts that children will learn, to really a tutor guiding role to help them deploy those the concepts that they learn online. And we'll talk a little bit more about blended learning and flipped classrooms, and why today we're finally starting to see those, the way we're teaching finally start to take shape the way we've been talking about it for 20 years. And then again, it enables both teachers and students to change the way they teach, change the way they learn, so it's more personal. And some of these things are driving the whole move to Chromebooks. And we looked at the last survey, we saw that 55% of all funds spent next year in education will be spent on mobile devices, edge devices. That's including all the infrastructure, software, everything. The majority of the money will be spent on mobile devices. And that's, that's fairly easy to understand. The E-rate programs have really allowed a lot of organizations to invest in infrastructure. So they're finally getting the wireless network in place that can support the devices, and they can change some of the things they're doing in terms of investment to more of providing these devices. And as I said earlier, it really behooves organizations to be able to provide technology to the students, to allow them to learn at their own pace, to allow them to learn in their own way, to allow them to learn anywhere, anytime, and to be able to access that content, their learning curriculum, their lessons, their homework from home, from smartphones, etc. And that's really the future of education, and that's from a technology standpoint, and that's where we're going, and that's where we're seeing Chromebooks have a tremendous impact because of their functionality and the cost to not only buy them, but to manage them, to own them, to fix them, all of those, and the reduced cost per student that allows that. And the change to go to Chromebooks was actually pretty phenomenal. It's a product that didn't exist a few years ago, but their introduction couldn't have been at a better time. It's almost the perfect storm. When you think about all of the devices that had to be bought, there was a big investment in technology because of state testing, etc. And the Chromebooks came along. They were inexpensive. Most people's infrastructure was good enough to utilize them at the time. They're easy to manage, they're easy to lock down, they work in state testing, so their timing couldn't have been better. And the transition, if you think about it, and I think I have a slide here in a minute that talks about the number of Chromebooks that will be acquired this year as a percentage of overall devices, and it's well over 50%. And this is a technology that 3.5 years ago didn't exist. It really is has made a tremendous change, in specifically in the education market. So why are people moving to mobile devices? So I just want to cover, the mobile device, the move to digital learning, and how that's impacting the desire to have one-to-one devices. And again, I think we're going to eventually live in a world where the device is ubiquitous. Whether it's a Chromebook, whether it's a Windows device, whether it's an Android device, that you're going to have the ability to get online, get access to your content in regardless of what the device is. That's truly the thing that when we can help all the students learn in the way that they should. So I've been doing this now. I've been selling technology for just over 40 years. The last 20 years have been in the education space. And we've been talking for at least that long about changing the way we use technology in schools to engage the students in a different way, to allow the teachers to do blended learning and flipped classrooms. And everybody's had this distant learning, bring in remote instructors and have the content that's online. We've been talking about it for a long time, but it's actually starting to come to fruition. We've kind of reached the tipping point where we're moving toward the eventuality of this stuff all being a reality. And one of the things in that tipping point was the ability to put enough devices in students' hands that are, affordable, usable, that the wireless is fast enough, the battery life is good enough, the screen is good enough that the students can use it to actually do it. And then above and beyond the hardware, the content, if you think about the content that's available today that 2 or 3 years ago was either way too expensive to bring to the table or wasn't really any better than a textbook, all of that's changed. The rich content that's out there and the amount of it that's either free or close to free, that's affordable per student, has really changed and is driving this move so that we really need to put a device in every student's hands. And the fastest way to get there right now is Chromebooks because of their cost, their manageability, all of the other components. And we'll talk to all of those things throughout the presentation, but that's really driving the move to Chromebooks. And again, all of those things outside of the cost of the device are important to understand and to look at, and really to help you execute a strategy that allow you to have an effective implementation of a device regardless of what ecosystem it is. So, we see things like Wikipedia and Khan Academy and Open Classroom and all the search tools and Google Classroom and Google Docs, all of the collaboration tools that are free and available. All of those things are actually moving from, the old-fashioned way of blackboard and chalk. We kind of moved, we took one step we got rid of the chalk, but we really just kind of moved the blackboard to the screen where we had 6 or 7 of them in the classroom. And the teacher often utilizes those much like they utilize the blackboard, only an electronic version. And we're finally starting to move with all these tools into a way that is truly the ability to change the way we engage students. So a much richer environment, more content out there, the ability to learn at your own pace, to do collaboration and group work, all of the things we've been kind of talking about like it was magical for 20 years. Again, we're at that tipping point. Some of the things that have done that are, the digital content, the tools we're talking about on the screen, and the affordability of the device, the investment in infrastructure, the ability for the device to be easy to use. So the transition to Google, one of the nice things that everybody, it's pretty obvious, but everybody was used to using a browser. So when you tried to move to Android and you were trying to use that in that interface, if you will, or that operating system, it's a little more complicated, it's hard to understand. But moving to Chrome was much like using a browser in a Windows environment. So the move was really easy, the learning curve was really short, and again, almost a perfect storm for Chromebooks. And again, you start looking at why do we need to teach students give them digital literacy. This stat's been bouncing around for a while that 60% of students that graduate are going to end up in jobs that don't exist today. So I'm sure at some point there'll be a robot or artificial intelligence on the end of the phone doing what I'm doing, but all of our jobs, many of the things we do today will change. There'll be other jobs, obviously. People are still going to work, and it's just going to be different. So one of the key elements in education is digital literacy. As simple as things as understanding how to utilize the internet, what to believe, how to do searches, how to do research, how to find information, and how to do it quickly and effectively. Just simple things, how to organize data, how to do those things. Students need to learn that as a job skill, almost specifically in North America, where almost everybody will likely be in a knowledge-based business of some kind. We're going to have to give these students the skills. So outside of, you'd have to learn to use Microsoft Office or do Google Docs, which probably will exist in a different format in 10 years from now. It's just understanding how the technology works. So if I look at the real purpose of technology in education, it is to allow teachers to engage students and improve learning outcomes. And the way you do that is you transition really the way we teach students, the way we engage them, and we get them more excited, more intrigued. We give them the ability to learn in a way that suits their learning skills. So, we got to give them simple tools, inexpensive tools. They got to work consistently. We got to help with content, create some kind of innovation in the way that content is projected or presented. And we really have to engage students so the learning outcomes, regardless of the learning styles, improve. We're fighting boredom often in schools or often in learning environments. So we need to give the students a way to learn, so we eliminate that as much as possible. So when I look at the 3 principles of great technology in education, again, you could apply this to any ecosystem. It really is. It's got to be simple to use, powerful enough so that you're not waiting for the device or get frustrated trying to use the device. We have to fuel innovation, and that again talks to content. It talks to having a device that is available and allows you to do some really exciting things that are available in the web space today. And then it's got to engage students in a way that we haven't done in the past. And again, this is the model that allows them to learn in a more enriched environment. So you just think about a textbook that somebody's reading, and the ability to input into that textbook rich media content that changes the experience of learning and how much more that engages students. All of that is no longer a pipe dream. It isn't something we're talking about. It's real, and it's there today. And again, a Chromebook, if you think about Chromebooks, very much follow these three principles. So why are they great? They're simple, they're powerful, they're easy to use, they're easy to set up, they're easy to maintain. I always talk to my friends in the commercial space about, in the IT world, about how good they have it, because the technologists, as I don't have to tell you, but you guys are adding technology, and it's actually more complicated to support even the Chromebooks because they're portable, they're often wireless, they sometimes go home with the students. So all of that is happening. So you're adding devices, and not often are you adding resources. So whatever it is that you bring to the table in terms of technology almost has to be successful, almost has to be easier to manage and support than the old world, the old technology, the older ecosystems, because the expectation isn't going to be that you're going to get 10 more people in your environment, or 5 more, or 1 more even, to support twice as many, 3 times as many devices that are moving. So one of the things we always talk about, and we'll get to pieces of that throughout the presentation, is how do you do that? How do you make sure whatever you're doing is supportable both at the teacher level and the IT level? And then we have to get the teachers engaged. We have to give them the learning tools and show them the pedagogy of using technology and education in a way that's meaningful, and in a way to allow them to get excited about changing the way they teach. I actually met a woman who was still teaching in her 70s, and was the head of a technology department, teaching instruction department in a very large district, who was completely reborn as a teacher when she engaged with technology 5 or 6 years ago. So, my hat's off to somebody at that age who can get excited about the way they teach and the way they engage students. I was at a presentation she gave, and the content was outstanding. I mean, she really, truly was passionate about teaching again, and changed the way she engaged teachers. But really, as an organization and as suppliers to your organization, we have to help you and figure out how to do that, because the technology by itself is just the tool. Without getting the teachers engaged and giving them the right professional development and encourage them and coaching them, it's hard to get the return, which at the end of the day is better learning outcomes, if we don't do those things. So what's great about Chromebooks right out of the box? Well, teachers could get to their lessons faster. So I turn it on, it's there. If I'm using the right classroom management tools, I can launch all of the content from the front of the room instantly. Nobody's messing around, booting up a machine, rebooting machines, re-imaging a machine, all of those things. You're just ready to go right out of the box. So again, simple experience, certainly from the student standpoint. I think any piece of technology is easy for them to learn. But for us older folks, we're used to browsers. So the Chrome environment is pretty easy to engage in, and the learning curve is pretty short. So, we've done some large projects where we've taken their apples out of the teacher's hand, the iPads, and put Chromebooks in their classroom, and they're, you're taking the iPads out of their hands, kicking and screaming, but it doesn't take them that long to transition to Chromebooks because the learning curve is so short. So, and the other perspective is the content is safe, it's secure, virus-free, all of those wonderful things. And of course, really, it's all about engaging the students. So, the biggest, as I said earlier, the biggest thing is boredom, right? How do we make sure that we engage them in a richer way than we have in the past? How do we change the learning environment and our learning engagement in a way that makes sense? So, we provide some content, and I'll talk to the stuff as we get older, or as we get further along in the presentation. But it's interesting, we've gone back to many of the districts where we've done large deployments, and we continue to work with them. And, you know, we did a large deployment in Florida, I believe it was, and yeah, it was, and we went back 3 months later, and teachers were telling us that students were actually showing up at early in the morning so they could get on their device and do some of the MobiMax work, some of the other content that they found exciting, that in the older days when it was just textbook and learning, A, they didn't have the ability to come in early, and B, they didn't have the desire. So I think utilized effectively, these devices can really motivate students and can really change their opinion of education, and that at the end of the day would be wonderful for all of us. So, and likewise, I was in New York last week. We did some video work with some of the larger schools in New York, and we interviewed kids and talked about how excited they were about using the tools and what they were doing with it. You know, we hope to publish that video shortly, but it was really fun to listen to the kids and how different their education experience became when we were able to put devices in their hands. And from an IT perspective, you know, this is Chromebooks are a no-brainer. It's you know, so much easier to deploy. It's, you know, your support costs go down substantially. The risk of viruses are virtually nothing. And the teachers themselves spend a lot less time troubleshooting, trying to maintain the device. The IT folks aren't running out to the classroom, because mostly, even if the teachers can't fix it, it's almost all manageable remotely from a portal that we'll talk about in a moment. So for those of you, and I'm going to guess 50% of you are, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. For those who are trying to make a decision whether you should go Chromebook, this is a pretty good slide to make that determination in terms of total cost of ownership. Again, there are some limitations. It isn't as rich an environment as some of the Windows environments. That said, it does a lot, and Google continues to invest in the ecosystem, continues to improve the online content, continues to invest in education as a major function of what they're doing. And so we see that the difference between utilizing Chromebooks in the classroom today and 3 years ago is you know, exponentially better, and we continue to see that investment from Google. So I think, you know, the quality of the product, the Chromebooks 3 years ago wasn't very good. The limitations were somewhat greater than they are today. So we see a move toward some things that are coming, and unfortunately I couldn't announce some of the stuff I was hoping to announce in these webinars because Google hasn't quite announced them publicly yet. But there's some really cool stuff coming, some virtual reality stuff, etc., that you'll see that's pretty cool. So keep an eye out for that, and hopefully when it's available, we'll do another webinar and bring everybody up to speed. So for those of you who are using this today, this won't come as a surprise, but one of the great things that Google does is provide IT folks with a management console, a portal, if you will, to manage all of your devices. And it's very much like Active Directory, only much simpler to engage. The GUI is easier to figure out, easier to work with, allows you to manage all of your devices from a single portal, allows you to provide set up all your devices, all of your policies, do your restrictions, do your filtering, etc., from a single portal. Whether you do it for a single school, whether you do it for an entire district, or actually whether you do it for multiple districts, we have some of our customers actually support multiple districts and manage them all remotely as well. So Chrome management, again, allows you to do things like, you know, user groups, you know, pre-install and block applications, manage user access. So where can they get to? I can filter, I can manage those things. I can manage, you know, by individual, by device type, by group, their access, their ability to use certain functions in Google Docs, etc. So again, depending on the profile of the user, depending on the profile of the device, depending on the profile of the device within a class, you can group them and drive policies around the usage of those devices, and it's extremely easy to use. It tracks your assets, it lets you customize features for single users, teachers perhaps, etc., and give them access to things that the students wouldn't necessarily have access to. I'm going to guess, and I should have asked this in the poll. Sorry, just grabbed a drink of water. That a lot of you are already using Google Apps for education. The really nice thing about this is it's very functional. The applications themselves are relatively rich. The price is free, and that's a great price. And there's a bunch of features, services, as you will, outside of the applications that we talk about. One of them is, the ability to, use Gmail and the calendaring systems in Gmail, etc. Set up groups for collaboration. Certainly, one of the things we try to get people to do is use sites at the classroom level, school level, etc. So students doing projects can create their own websites. Classrooms can create their own websites, etc. All the tools are online and free. Drive, obviously, you get access to tons of storage for each student. Allows you to collaborate, safely store documents, utilize sharing, etc. Through that storage device. So it's secure. So it's great. Again, Vault allows you to make sure you can do discoveries, compliance, etc. Classroom is an awesome product, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But anybody that has deployed Chromebooks and hasn't used Classroom really needs to take a hard look at it, because the teachers, once they start using it, there's always that kind of, I'm afraid I have to learn something new, resistance, but the learning curve is really short, and the advantages or features in that product teachers love, and it's outstanding. Talk and Hangout, again, it's much like Skype, only Google's version of it. You have to be a little bit careful when you set up your Google permissions, just because there's a couple of potential check boxes that you think don't have to be checked that need to be checked, so that students can't make calls using Hangout that you don't want them making. I talk about Google Classroom, and I do this because Google introduced this, I'm going to say now, about 1.5 years ago. They have about 70 million assignments now that have been distributed using Google Classroom. So again, I do presentations all over North America. I did one a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised. I was in a room full of about 60 or 70 teachers in a state that had deployed Chromebooks, and asked them about this, and a lot of them weren't using Classroom. And when I explained the functions and features of it and how it could make their lives easier in terms of providing assignments and managing assignments and quizzes, etc., they were, teach me more. Well, quite frankly, that as much as I'd like to teach them and as much as I could charge them to do that, it was all the training you ever wanted is actually online, and it's free. So it's an interesting environment. There is a question about moving from a Windows environment to Chrome. What are the tools that will have to be replaced in terms of monitoring, filtering, Windows, .x applications, etc.? So Tom, I'm going to give you a really stupid answer. It depends. Depends a little bit on your apps and where you're moving. So I'm going to cover some of the management tools that are available above and beyond Google Chrome Management. If you don't hear what you think you should hear at that point, then send me an email, and I'll give you my email address, and maybe we can just have a quick call, and I'll talk to you about your environment and precisely what I might recommend based on what your environment is. So again, just from a classroom classroom application situation, there's really 3 keys to this, and it allows teachers to really organize their by classroom, by student assignments, provide assignments, so send assignments out, collect assignments, have students turn them in directly to a file folder, if you will, where those assignments are due, or their student ask questions, collaborate with either the teacher or a group. It allows them to organize all of that information in a really timely fashion, or a really easy fashion. And as I said, teachers, once they start to utilize this, absolutely love it. So I encourage anybody who is coming to this environment for the first time to take a look at this application and the online training that's available and utilize it. By the way, it's free, which is a great price. And of course, then there's tons and tons of applications, content for all age groups that are all approved by Google in their education approved applications in the Google for Education store. So a lot of these are free or almost free. And again, the Google management tool allows you to buy and distribute applications and licenses, and most of these conform to that environment. So you can add it to your pool and pay, $2.99 for each license you push out, etc. So again, the amount of content that's available, whether it is Khan Academy, whether it's one of the things that I saw was the ability to take acting lessons from Kevin Spacey and Dustin Hoffman for $90. So I can get, I think it's 90 hours of acting coaching online training. And I think the poor drama coach teachers have to compete with that. So there's content out there that's just amazing. And it really, in particular for education, it's outstanding. One of the things that you're able to do is utilize texts and utilize regular textbooks that have been turned to PDF, so you can use a PDF reader that allows you to annotate and cut and paste and take notes and put notes in the edges of the thing and save it, etc. But as time goes on, those books are now becoming, all of these publishers are starting to be competitively forced to create much more rich media content. So I think you're not only going to see the ability to rent literature, classic literature, but some of the new education material, textbooks, etc., will be driven to a much richer media content that'll utilize the technology even better. I think the last stat I saw was there was 22 states who no longer fund hardcover textbooks. So if you want to buy published textbooks, you're doing it in a digital format. So I think that you'll see a move to that eventually in the next few years, where more and more students will require a device just to be able to read the textbooks. And again, it's a kind of a trade-off. If the devices all become under $200 or in the $180 range, it's a little easier to justify putting one of those in a student's hand when it replaces 5 textbooks. I'm sorry, I just got a question, so I'm going to read it. I'm being from Virginia, provide updates. So, okay. I'll come back to that question, Sam, at the end. What I'll do is answer them, because that's a long answer. So we'll spend a minute or two on that at the end. So there's a couple of questions in your question. I'll get back to it in a second. So I'm going to tell you now, this is kind of the sales part of the presentation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our strategy, but I think whether you take it for what it's worth in terms of the content I'm going to show you that's relevant to our stuff, but this is our strategy because it really is and should be your strategy, whether you buy our stuff or somebody else's. This kind of makes sense. I look at a 4-pillar strategy that talks about choosing the right device, having the right tools to manage it, both from a IT standpoint and a classroom standpoint, and then having the EDU tools or the content that's available. How do I make sure I got the right content? So that's one of the pillars. And then the next is, how do I teach people to use this? And truthfully, it's primarily teachers and in some case technologists from a warranty perspective, from a deployment perspective, etc. And then how does my warranty, do I have the right warranty and support in place to support a one-to-one or almost one-to-one or some version of a one-to-one environment? Because when I used to have 6 or 7 desktops in a classroom, it was easy for me, if one broke, to wait a couple of days to fix it or take it out of the classroom and slide Sally's chair over, and people shared, 3 kids on the device instead of 2. With one-to-one or a device in every student's hand, you don't have that luxury anymore. So that device that breaks needs to be replaced quicker. It needs to be replaced immediately almost, or the student is unable to participate effectively in a class. So from a device standpoint, here are some of the devices we have that we provide. So we have 3 different Chromebook series. Here's what I will say about them. Our devices are all designed specifically for education. So much of the devices, the early Chromebooks, were made for consumers. And when we put them in the classroom, the kids, as wonderful as they are, figured out how to break them real quick. So one of the things that we've tried to do in our design and deployment is to kind of build devices, and I'll show you some of the features that we build into them that allow us to effectively stand up to the, I'm going to say, abuse that they will get in the classroom. And so our devices are that way. So there's a bunch of check boxes in terms of what you should look for in a device, and we try to hit all of those check boxes. Things like, is the battery field replaceable? So if I'm going to keep this for 3 or 4 years and the battery's still going to last all day, there will be a number of devices where I have to update the battery. So what does that mean? Well, one is, what is the cost of doing that? Can I do it in the field? So what's the replacement part of the part? Can I do it in the field? How long does it take? Do I have to take the device apart? Is my warranty void once I do that? So those are things you got to consider, that when you're buying the device, you're saying, well, hey, the battery's 10 hours, that's great. But is it 10 hours in year 3? And the answer is likely not. Like any other device, the batteries in these things wear after a while. So all of our devices are designed to either have a battery, which I'll show you, which is easily replaceable in terms of almost end user replaceable, but all of them are designed so that they can be replaced in the field without voiding the warranty. So one of the devices we have, our most popular device, is the M series Chromebook. So the features, specs are there. I won't go through them. This is our most, as I said, our most popular product. The pictures you're seeing here, the device is actually white. We have now sold out of all of our white ones and have moved to a black device. I'm not sure why, but the folks who manufacture for us, for education, seem to think that white was the right color, despite us and our customers telling otherwise. So that when all of the products are launched, they're almost always launched in white. And I think it's a bit of a hangover from Apple, because Apple was so popular, bright white colors, etc., that people working in the education manufacturing space seem to want to go to white. What we've heard from all of our customers is love the product, would love it more if it was black, so in year 3 and 4 it doesn't start to look dirty. So, excuse me, that's our most popular device. So what's unique about it? Well, it actually has a removable battery. So much like a notebook, you can replace that battery, and that replaceable battery is under $30. So when we build these devices and design them, we look at the total cost of ownership. So, one of the things we do is say, listen, how do we design it so it's more rugged? Well, if you look at the device, the keyboard actually sticks out slightly more than the screen. So when it's dropped, which it inevitably is, that when it hits the corner, the screen doesn't take the abuse, the keyboard does. So it's 70 centimeter drop proof, where I can drop it, and when it drops on the edge, it hits the keyboard. And so that doesn't break, or the screen doesn't break. So even if the keyboard breaks, it's substantially less money to replace. Has a retractable handle that can be used to carry it around the classroom, so it's less likely to be dropped. That's the other feature of it. And as I said, the removable battery is a very unique feature in Chromebooks at the moment. We have another Intel reference design, which is similar to the one before. This one's a little more rugged. It has a water-resistant keyboard, has a rotatable camera, a little more expensive, quad-core Intel processor, 4 gigs of memory, etc. So it also has a retractable handle for the same reasons. The keyboard sticks out slightly more than the screen for the same reasons. And one of the big things is this has a rotatable camera. So in essence, it has a forward and rear facing camera all built into it. I will answer the question that I know you're asking right now, which is how often did they break or how fast did the kids break them? So this is, the rotatable camera is actually an Intel reference design and is tested on each product. When they do the quality assurance test, they rotate it 20,000 times just to make sure it doesn't break or doesn't wear. Despite telling customers that, they always have a fear that the kids will break them. So let me put your mind at ease. We've sold literally tens of thousands of these in multiple different products, whether it's a notebook, Windows device, or a Chromebook, and have had less than 1% breakage. I think it's 0.01% breakage. It is pretty indestructible. Now, I hate to say that in front of students because then they feel they've been challenged to break it. So I'm sure they could, but it doesn't happen very often. Lastly, we have the K-Series Chromebook. This is a little lighter, a little sleeker, a little better looking product in terms of if you were buying a consumer product, you'd probably be more likely to buy this device. Functionality is the same as the other two devices in terms of memory, processing power, etc. We sell this more into the higher grades because it's a little lighter. It's, again, not as rugged as the other two devices, but is a really nice looking product. So the high school students seem to prefer this device over the other ones. So Sam, this might help answer some of your questions. So we worked with a couple of organizations outside of Chrome that allow you to manage multiple devices. So a lot of people that we work with, a lot of customers we work with today are in multi-platform environments. So they're transitioning either from a Windows to a Chrome or an iOS to Chrome, and they're looking for products that can kind of bridge that gap. GoGuardian's one of them. Lightspeed is another that we provide, and basically it allows you to it's an enhancement, if you will, to the Chrome management, and allows you to manage multi-platform. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about GoGuardian. We do webinars on Lightspeed, and we do webinars on GoGuardian, and we'll certainly, if you're interested, let us know. We'll make sure you get an invitation because just the presentation of this would take half an hour. But GoGuardian has two elements to it, and it's actually two licenses. One of them is IT-based to allow you to manage the devices more robustly than you can with Chrome management. So it enhances that and does things, it gives you more filtering. It allows you to have more security, increase the amount of policies you can push out, and gives you analytics in terms of what your bandwidth is getting used for, what the Chromebooks are getting used for, the most popular sites, the trends in YouTube, etc. And allows you to do filtering so that you can make sure that certain sites are unattainable, other sites are allowed, and it does things like crowdsourcing products and categories and URLs. So they keep a public library of less than desirable URLs. You can just automatically bounce it into your filter and eliminate those. The one nice thing about it that customers really like, it's its ability to manage, still have access to YouTube, but manage what's available or throughput, etc. It also has a theft recovery model or element that allows you to track and manage the device if it's stolen, and you can lock it down so nobody can actually turn it on. And they'll be able to see, where they're going, what they're trying to do. It actually used to take a picture of the individual from the webcam when they tried to log on after you'd indicated the device had been stolen or lost, but unfortunately they had to remove that feature because they got sued by one of the thieves saying that they had invaded his privacy, which is, I think, hilarious. But so that feature doesn't exist anymore. However, you can do theft recovery with it. So it costs, and I'm going to tell you, the matrix of pricing is all over the place depending on how many and how long you buy the subscription for, but it's about full price for one unit is $7 per device, minimum 30 devices because they have to set up a classroom. Again, we do have webinars strictly on this product, They do have a free 30-day trial. I can tell you this, wherever we've put it in, it hasn't come out. So the utilization for the price is substantial. They also have a classroom management tool. So whether it's theirs or Lightspeed's, it really does give the teacher the ability to manage the device more effectively in the classroom. And classroom management really does a number of things. And the key things are it allows them to manage the device in terms of managing the students' access or what they're doing in the classroom. They can lock they can lock everybody's device at once. They can see what people are doing both at in the foreground and the background to make sure there's nothing going on that shouldn't be. They can share their screen, so it's a teaching opportunity. If Johnny's doing a great job, I can share that screen with everybody, or the teacher can share a screen with a single student and say, take a look at this. This is let me show you how you should be doing it. It allows them to do quizzes and tests and manage all that information from one portal, if you will. And what teachers really like about it is it allows them to launch applications and URLs from the front of the room on everybody's device. So it speeds up that process of getting to the content. It allows them to lock all the screens at once. So if the kids are not paying attention or getting out of line, it allows them, the teachers call it the head up button. So when they hit it, everybody jumps up from the keyboard and goes, hey, what are you doing? Starts paying attention to the teacher again. So there's a lot of features that the teachers really like. And I encourage you to, if you're investing that much money in the devices and the infrastructure, it's a fairly inexpensive way of helping the teachers utilize that investment. And again, it's about $7 a device per year to do that. And so it allows them, you can see here, this is some of the features. It allows them to make sure the kids stay on task. They can open and lock tabs, etc. Block screens, capture what somebody's doing if it's inappropriate. It also provides the teacher a set of analytics that are specific to their needs. So where as an IT individual, you may want one set of statistics, they're going to look at it from a classroom activity perspective, and it's not a very good picture, but you can see over here on the side, they've got all the students, and then all of the graphics are relevant to the amount of time they spend on specific activities or URLs. So it does give the teacher the ability to look at a student who's supposed to be doing one thing and maybe spending all their time doing another. So again, if you think about the investment you make in the tools, it's not a very expensive investment to make sure that you utilize the tools effectively. Professional development is an area that we can help you with. We have a number of options you can look at. From my perspective, there's 3 or 4 ways to look at this. One is from an IT perspective, is how do I set up my Google environment so that it's easy to add, subtract, move students around in terms of, hey, they've graduated from grade 3 to grade 4. Can I push one button for everybody and move them so the new content is easy and accessible? How do I set up my Google Apps for Education so those kind of things are easily done, in graduating years as opposed to individual students, etc. And then how do I deploy them? How do I make sure that I engage them with my existing infrastructure, etc.? Have I got infrastructure to support them? So if I'm adding 500 devices, is my wireless, or my network band going to support it? So we have the ability to help you through all of that piece, including an audit, which I'll talk about in terms of if you are a Google for Apps environment, are you utilizing it the best way you can, or is there some way to improve it to make your life easier? And then, from a teacher's standpoint, the other piece is from a training, from a warranty repair standpoint, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But from a teacher standpoint is, okay, so how do we use technology in the classroom regardless of what it is? How do I utilize technology more effectively to engage students from a pedagogy standpoint, if you will? And then specifically to applications. So if there are a set of applications, whether it's classroom management, whether it's the ability to add students, to filter students at a classroom level, how do I do those things? So again, those are all professional development opportunities we would love to share with you or help you with. So one of those things is Kickstart, and that really is a service that allows us to help you get started in terms of your Chromebook deployment. So if you have never done a deployment before and you're looking for some help, this is something that we can either help you with, and we can do a lot of this online without coming on site, which makes it a lot less expensive for us to do it on your behalf. We do it, and this is the GAF audit I talked about a minute ago, which allows us to look at your infrastructure, the way you've set up your operations and GAF management, how are people utilizing it, what kind of adoption rate you're getting. These are all kind of an audit that goes back and goes, hey, here's best practices, here's what you're doing, how can we help you get to best practices? Above and beyond that, I talked earlier about the importance of support and warranty. And white glove service, toll-free desks, our ability to do planning and deployments. Warranty coverage, again, you really have to look at it. We primarily do almost a customization for each customer, but there are three kind of categories. You have extended warranty on devices up to 4 years that are standard kind of, hey, we'll cross-ship product when it breaks. We'll make sure you have a replacement product within X. We have accidental damage coverage that says, hey, you broke it. It's not really, shouldn't be covered under warranty, but you've paid the insurance, if you will. And in some cases, we reduce the upfront costs and have a deductible. In some cases, there is no deductible, and we don't reduce the upfront costs. So again, customizable based on your ability maybe to pass that deductible on to the student and have them feel some ownership for the device. We have self-maintenance programs where we actually come and teach your techs to do warranty work on the devices. We provide parts closets. Again, all that depends on the number of devices, the number of techs you have, etc. We often will sell a program where a percentage of brand new devices are part of the transaction and they're hot swaps. So you're swapping it into the classroom, taking one out, sending it back to us. We replenish your hot swap product so that you can continue to do that. We have spare consignment, spare parts closets, if you will, for self-maintainer programs. We do, as I said, warranty, training, repair. One of the cool things we've been able to do with some schools is actually train their teachers to train their students to do these repairs so that not only are they reducing their warranty costs, but they're providing the students with a skill that makes them employable almost immediately upon completing the course. So there's a bunch of flexibility we can do regardless of whether you buy the EduGear product or you buy HP product or Dell product from us. We have the ability to do all of these things on your behalf. I'm running out of time here, and I feel bad, but so I'm going to try to get back to the questions. I'll do it at the end so that if anybody is got to go, then I've covered the content anyways. We got a couple other things we do. Storage and charging is huge for those that aren't sending products home. We have a wide variety of carts, from we just are launching this brand new cart that's really cool, very inexpensive, charges all your Chromebooks at a single time, depending on their wattage requirements, or each shelf for about 15 minutes has smart charging in it, 5-inch wheels, bumpers, 3 pull-out drawers, flexibility in terms of outlets so that if you have devices, which many of the new Chromebooks do, where the AC adapter has the big head on the end of the plug, it will accommodate up to 33 devices without having to have ugly extension cords, etc. in the back. So we're pretty excited about that. Keep an eye out for that. We'll be launching that in the next 10 days in advertising it, etc. Oops, got a little ahead of myself. And we have storage carts or storage cabinets of all different shapes and sizes depending on what your requirements are. We find a lot of people, though, are looking for a bundled solution. So we do have bundles, for example, that will allow us to ship that cart fully loaded with devices, all the cabling management done for you. You basically roll it off the truck. The provisioning is done in terms of white glove services. You roll it into a classroom, plug it in, you're ready to go. And the cost of labor for us to do that on your behalf is likely less than the cost of you doing it yourself, only because we have a production facility where it's easy for us to do it quickly and in quantity. Some of the other accessories we offer are protective bags that are logoed with your school's name, etc. We do drop tests, so we put the device in, we throw it downstairs, we treat it like the students will treat it when they have a device in it, and we try to make it as protective as possible for the device, while at the same time not making it expensive. So our bags are under $30. You can literally put a 14-inch notebook, throw it down the stairs, and it doesn't break. Protective cases, so sleeves, always-on devices for a number of Chromebooks, etc. if it's something you want to do, headphones. And skins is really popular. So you can see an example in the top right here where we've actually provided a school with their logo and their information that's deckled right onto the Chromebook. And it's funny how all of a sudden that product becomes more desirable at the school level. So if you're interested in having us mock one up for you and show you what it looks like, we'd be happy to do that. So that's it. That's our the official presentation. I got a couple of questions here. So from a monitor, web filtering, Windows, etc. standpoint, Tom asked if you're moving from a Windows environment to Chrome, what is there tools that allow me to do that? So again, Tom, it might be best that I understand what tools you have today. I'd be happy to have that conversation. You've got my email address on the screen. Fire me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. But I think I gave you some options there. So a lot of people will run a parallel situation. So they have their ecosystem for Windows. They use their filtering there. And then they use the Google tool, which is a must anyways, to do their filtering for their Chromebooks. Now, there are tools like Lightspeed and like GoGuardian that allow you to do multi-ecosystems. And again, they cost a little bit, but often when I look at the cost of, I had a customer on the phone yesterday that was moving from Casper. I've talked to people that are using from Air, whatever it is, the Apple one. And the cost of transition is the product's actually getting cheaper. So Lightspeed is, if we sell you a brand new device, we can either put up it annually or there's a $40, I think $39 fee for lifetime. So you divide that over 4 years and it's about $10 a year per device for both the classroom management, filtering, and device management. And that will go cross-platform. So there are alternatives. Depends a little bit on your current environment. So maybe that's a conversation we need to have. And the next question was really about testing, Test Nav app, applied to management console. So, again, here's the Chromebooks. Any Chromebook that is sold that's Google certified, I could tell you from our own personal experience, the certification progress is extremely rigorous. So I think whoever's product you're buying, Sam, will be functional. You'll be able to lock it down. You'll be able to do those kind of things using Google Console that will allow you to stay compliant with the requirements of TestNav or any other state testing. What I will caution you about is this, that Google Management updates the OS instantly, automatically, which is wonderful. I mean, think about no more Windows updates. Somebody logs in, all of a sudden their Windows update's done. They don't have anything to load on the device. Here's the challenge. The challenge is once you go forward, it's really hard to go backwards. So some of the state testings, for example, are 2 OS versions behind, and that's the only thing they allow. So if you're deploying Chromebooks, I strongly suggest you make sure, and so by the way, you have the ability to turn that off. So the OS doesn't get updated automatically and you control it. So, you just make sure you set it up that way. Reach out to TestNav, see what OS version they will support, and make sure you keep those things synchronized going forward. So I talked about charging carts, which is part of your question. Lastly, these textbooks are available. Yeah, good point about textbooks and their ability to use them without a network connection. So you can put them on things like USB. The Chromebooks actually will store some content. You need to set it up accordingly. So you could use it like an e-reader while you don't have a network connection. And we'd be happy to show you how to do that. And those are the questions I have, and I'm way over time. I apologize for that. And most of you hung in there for this long, so I appreciate that very much. I'm not going to take any more of your time. You have my email address. Any other questions, please email them to me. I'll do my best I can to answer them as quickly as possible. I thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I know how busy you all are. I hope you found today both interesting and informative, and I look forward to you joining me again for future webinars. Take care and have a wonderful day. Cheers.